Mickey Mouse. Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Good to see you, sir. I have to tell you, this is a massive honor for me. So thank you for taking the time, sir. I appreciate you.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Good to talk to you.
And I'm going to be out there on Monday as well. So we'll be able to meet in person, which I'm very much looking forward to. But I
Okay.
got a million questions. So I'm going to jump into this for you. And I really want to start out talking about just being a creator, because obviously, in addition to creating your vodka line, you have created some of the most iconic movie characters of all time. You've directed Nothing But Trouble, which was watched on VHS over and over again in my house growing up. I'm sort of curious, while these are all wildly different creative ventures, vodka is different than writing, which is different than directing. I'm sort of curious, what is the commonality? Like, what is the constant you have found that ties together just the experiences of creating something that you're proud of?
I would say just crystalline moments of inspiration where you've got nothing, you're thinking about a topic or an idea, whether it be a film, a television script, or the idea of a house of blues or the vodka. You get to a point where you're thinking, you're ruminating, you're trying to make it gel, and then all of a sudden it all comes together in a puzzle piece that makes sense. So I think it's those special, one-off moments of inspiration. Sometimes they can only last a minute, but from that minute, you can build a whole business.
Speaking of that business, obviously you've created some of the greatest characters in the history of pop culture. Which one do you think would most enjoy Crystal Head Vodka? I know you're showing off a Ghostbusters themed drink next week. Are there any other characters that might also provide inspiration for a cool Crystal Head Vodka drink?
I think the Conehead Beldar he'd like that. He would like it because he consume mass quantities of it and not be affected.
You know, you
Yeah.
have to be careful of this interview getting back to Lorne Michaels. You know he's going to see that and go, "Yeah, that's gold. We gotta bring him back."
Oh, I would love to do that Conehead again. My favorite character.
That's seriously, again, talking about VHS movies that were played over and over again. Obviously Coneheads and Nothing But Trouble, definitely two of them. You are going to be back in Chicago next week. Fans are going to get the chance to meet you. And that's something you've always been great about. Like you are someone who has made yourself accessible to the people whose lives have been inspired by your work. I'm sort of curious over the years, what's been the most interesting fan encounter you've ever had?
Well, we used to do these signings at liquor stores, and I guess there have been a couple of them where we show up and 800 to 1,000 people are there. And I would say maybe, 1/8 of them are Ghostbusters, dressed in the jumpsuits. They make their own packs. They've got their traps. Sometimes they'll turn the family station wagon into an ectomobile. So those are the most fun, I guess. The big volume signings that we had, because of the variety of people that would come, sometimes bringing their kids or coming as families. And what it provides for me is an immediate feedback as to what the client, the consumer, the customer for Crystal Head and all the other things, what do they want? What are they looking for in a good time and a distraction from all the horrors of the world? And so I get an immediate feedback when I sit there at a signing table and meet several hundred people.
I've got to tell you, obviously, so I'm talking to you from Chicago. So many great movies have been filmed in our city. And as a movie fan, when I walk around Chicago, oftentimes I don't see Chicago locations. I see places that were the location of my favorite movies. I know it's been nearly 45 years, but when you return to Chicago, when you drive around downtown, when you are around Daly Plaza, how quickly do the Blues Brothers memories come back to you? How has that movie shaped how you see this city?
Pretty vivid because really, if you look at the characters of Jake and Elwood and the Nun and Curtis and all of the wonderful guest musicians in there, right up there as a character is the city itself, because Landis shot it in that way, and I think the whole spirit and vibrancy of Chicago came alive in that film. And of course, when I'm riding under the L, I think about it, and Lower Wacker, I think about the afternoon that we were shooting. And Steve McQueen was shooting Hunter right across the street at the Corncob buildings. And so we stopped our unit. We pulled our camera car over to watch the stunt where they drive the car off the Corncob into the river. Do you remember that in the
Of
movie called
course.
Hunter with Steve McQueen? Yeah.
So when I
Yeah.
watch that clip, I can think about the fact that you guys are there in that moment.
We were on the other side and Lower Wacker sitting there watching the stunt. Yeah. And a
That's
couple of,
incredible.
Proper and Dunn, who were the incredible guitarists in in our band. They got to hang with Steve McQueen. He was staying at the same Holiday Inn. John and I didn't meet him then. We had met him briefly many years before, or a few years before. But they got to hang with him and drink with him, and they said he was just great and a Blues Brothers fan.
That's well. Speaking of Blues Brothers, I want to ask really quickly before I move on. I was wondering if you remember the first time you put on the Trilby hat and the sunglasses. Obviously, it was before SNL because you created the characters for to open for Steve Martin. Is that right?
Well, no, we created the characters and the whole idea in Toronto when John came up to recruit for National Lampoon Radio Hour. Right that very night, we were listening to blues records, and I proposed, hey, well, we should, you sing a bit, I play the harp a bit. You're a good singer, we can move around. Maybe we should do a blues act. And so when we got to start the show, SNL, we went down there. John had collected all kinds of records, and he talked to Willie Nelson, and he said, we'd like to try out this act. And we were developing the story and the look of the IRS agents or the Hasidic diamond merchants or the men in black. We were developing this look and the whole story behind it. And so we'd done quite a bit of work at that point. And Willie Nelson agreed to have us uh, play with his band and in fact open for his band for him. And so we did 3 nights at the Lone Star Cafe where we tried on the uniform and tried on our sort of ludic frontman act, and it worked. The audience loved it, and so we thank Willie Nelson, and of course Steve Martin. Once we had been on the show, he said, "Come and open for me at the Universal Amphitheater." There'd be no Blues Brothers if it weren't for that night, because that's when we recorded the first record. So it was with a lot of help from people that it came together. But that first hat and glasses and briefcase and chain was with Willie Nelson at the Lone Star.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I have to tell you, as a fan of pop culture and history, there's few things cooler than whenever I have friends and family come to visit me in Chicago and taking them to Second City and really emphasizing, like, look at that stage. I want you to think, one, you walk up the stairs and you see the pictures of all the legends, but really emphasizing, like, think about the people who have stood on that stage. And I was just wondering how many moments, how much of your roots tie back to that stage?
Oh, very, very, quite a few. And well, of course, improv is the basis for all of the careers of the Saturday Night Live players. We were in Chicago in 1974 for the month of August. We came down, or for a little bit of July and August. We traded companies. Toronto company came to Chicago. Chicago company went to Toronto. And that was a very formative and seminal summer for us because we got to entertain the audiences that had been seeing Second City for years, very sophisticated in the taste for improv. So for us to succeed there was most gratifying. And what it gave me was also basically an origination of the Blues Brothers. I got to go to blues clubs all over the city, got to see great artists perform. I saw Big Walter Horton, and we put him in the movie. And also, it also gave me that kernel of a story, the dynamic between church and state, where the Department of Education was considering taxing church property. Although it never happened because that would have been just too much, it was kind of the kernel of the Blues Brothers story. So that summer of '74 was very formative for me.
I mean, this all goes back to what you were talking about earlier, just like where creativity and where inspiration comes from, which I find fascinating. If you'll allow me one more geek out question, because this year is obviously the 40th anniversary of the original Ghostbusters. I'm a massive fan of Frozen Empire. It was everything I wanted to see you guys
Oh,
back on the
good,
screen
good.
again. I thought it was incredible. I've always heard a story. I know that the original idea came from you, and it was your interest and your belief in the paranormal. But I'd read that there was a 2 week period where you and Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman just locked yourself in a house and sort of just worked on the script together. And I'd love to hear what you remember, if that is true, what you
Yeah.
remember most about that 2 week period.
Well, I had originated the script, and then we'd had a one draft, and then it came time to really adapt it for Murray and basically give the piece to him as our lead romantic star, and to refine it. So I just with an old Royal electric typewriter, I locked myself and Ivan and Harold into the basement of my house in Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, And because upstairs in the house is a spectacular view of the sound, the water, the trees. So I said, no, we're not going to look at that view. We're going to go downstairs where we can't see anything. And we basically refined it to come up with the shooting draft in those 2 weeks. Yeah, and that was so much fun, so much fun. We miss Ivan a lot. I miss him a lot because I used to talk to him every week about what was going on with Ghost Corps and all that. And now, his voice is missing in my life, and it's unfortunate.
I have to tell you though, I'm a big believer of, people's work. It lives past them, and in that way, obviously, I feel like live forever in a certain way. Whenever I saw For Ivan at the end of Frozen Empire, I just thought like that. I got choked up a little bit, and it was just sort of a reminder of the impact that his work and all of your works have had on our lives. Mr. Aykroyd, I just want to end by saying, sir, you have been such a massive part of my entire life and my love of film and comedy and pop culture. Like I was raised learning what was funny by watching you. So I just want to say thank you for just the massive impact that you've had on my life that made me fall in love with pop culture and do this job. And I look forward to being able to shake your hand in person in a couple of days.
I look forward to it, Turk. Take care.
All right. Take care, sir. Good to see you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Aykroyd, you promised me last week.
Dan, please.
Dan,
yeah.
You promised me that
only
we would have a drink
the
together.
police call me
Fair enough.
Mr. Aykroyd.
Fair enough. Hopefully not too often. I didn't think
too
you
often.
Would, I didn't think you would deliver. You promised me we would have a drink together.
Well, this is the simplest and most beautiful way for me to showcase my clean product.
That's damn good stuff.
It's like water.
It really is. Dangerously so, but yes. I want to talk to you about being back in Chicago. This is a city that gave you so much inspiration over the years, going to the blues bars, your time at Second City.
Oh, yeah.
Do you still find yourself inspired by this city the way you did back in the day?
Well, yes, just driving through the suburbs on our way out here, I was looking at all the beautiful old houses there in Oak Park and thinking about just the great American books that have been written about the Midwest, the Booth Tarkington books, the Penrod stories, and I'm thinking, there's a film location right there. So here I'm just driving out in the suburbs just to come out here, and I'm looking and thinking that's a film location, and then from that, what are those families? What's going on in those three houses there? What stories could be there? And then I'm thinking that could be a series. So of course I'm inspired. Who wouldn't be by this vibrant, spectacular American city?
I love that. I want to talk about those aha moments for you when you're putting pen to paper and you're creating the Blues Brothers, or you and Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis are locked in a house for 2 weeks and you're chiseling out the Ghostbusters script, or when you come up with the idea to do this vodka. What is that aha moment like? Are they similar at all?
They kind of occur in slow motion. There's no real light bulb that goes on or spark. It evolves kind of in an amoeba-like way and spreads a bit. It can happen as quick as 5 minutes, which the Ghostbusters idea did, or it can happen as quick as a minute with the vodka. When my friend showed me the skull, I said, I know exactly what to put in that. A stripped down vodka. It will sell the idea of the purity of our product. So that was about a minute. The other, but they're slow minutes. They're slow 5 minutes. It builds slowly. You feel it's like almost like a gunfighter. Wyatt Earp said that his musculature was developed, but what was strong was his timing and slowing everything down. So slowly it comes to you. Wait, skull, Mayan culture, scrying devices, purity, crystal heads. Wow. Okay, and that all happened in about a minute. And for the Ghostbusters, do a ghost comedy but use the physics and use the real vernacular and follow my great grandfather's steps in research. That took 5 minutes. So it's a slow build, even though it happens quickly.
Of minutes, Jason Reitman right now is working on is it New York 1975? I believe
SNL 75,
SNL 1975. Very few people know what those 90 minutes, I believe, because he's going to tell the story in the 90 minutes leading up to Live from New York at Saturday night. What is he most going to have to capture about that night? What do you most remember that in order for that movie to get it right, he's going to have to get this part right?
Just I would say the urgency of going live and all of the dynamic players involved, from the executives down through Lauren to talent that made it on and didn't make it on. I haven't seen the script, I don't know, but he's an excellent filmmaker, and it's going to be something to see. I think it's going to be a big hit, because SNL is the most popular late night show across all countries, all time zones. It's the most popular one.
There'll never be anything else like that.
It's an institution, and it should be too. I watched the Kristen Wiig show; it was spectacular.
She's flawless.
Yeah, she's magnificent, and the writing on it is really consistent, and it's the only really good immediate political satire venue that we have for what's happening in the world.
And gave us some of the greatest characters of all time. Beldar being
John Lovitz, the devil.
Yes.
I mean, John Lovitz to me is worth the price of admission in whatever he's in.
Yep.
Whatever he's in. I love him, and he is truly beloved by all of us, too.
I think the only thing better than the Blues Brothers, I think, is the behind-the-scenes story of the Blues Brothers. I know it was a struggle to get that movie here in Chicago. A lot of people had to be spoken to. A lot of mayors had to be spoken to. I'm sort of curious what you remember about getting the Blues Brothers in Chicago.
Once Mayor Byrne, got the idea that, hey, what it was a spoof, and it was also going to glorify the city and make the city a character, and it was going to serve the city well. She signed on, and then after that, we got to drive across Dealey Plaza. We got to break the plate glass windows. We got to buy 70 police cars from the. Although I think they appreciated the revenue. They were all wrecks, those cars.
What do you remember about that Dealey Plaza day?
Oh, just the extras. I had to drive across at speed, honking my horn, and all the extras running out of the way. And I thought, God, this is so dangerous.
It was a different time.
It looked great.
I always hate asking actors about props and what props they have, but we are surrounded by Ghostbusters memorabilia. Ghostbusters, we've got the pictures up there. They got the proton packs, and we've got a ghost trap on the bar over there. What do you have in your? Is there anything we have a man cave in our home with all kind of movie memorabilia. What do you have that I would geek out most about?
Wow, let me see. Well, I don't really have any memorabilia other than posters and scripts and that. But the neatest piece of memorabilia that I've ever owned from the movies was a fully marked Illinois State Police car with siren and lights and plates and everything, which I drove in New York for 3 years after the movie, fully marked, driving down the streets of New York. Nobody looked twice. What is the guy serving a warrant from another state? I used to pick up dates in it. It was fantastic. And I sold it, and then it ended up on a racetrack somewhere.
What does a person say when they're picked up on a date and a Chicago police car?
Well, a state trooper, a state police car. All the ladies that I ever dated back then were so cool. I could have picked them up in a garbage wagon, and they would have been fine. Magnificent women, all of them.
Well, you're a magnificent man, sir. Mr. Aykroyd, on behalf of...
Good to meet you. Thanks for sharing the drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.